and welcome to David Henning Mindset. And it wasn't too long ago that we started recording this podcast, and I did it for a specific reason. I wanted to talk about some things that were important to me. I wanted to talk about faith, family, and I wanted to give some people some financial tips to help them with their money. Now, anybody that knows me knows that there's certain things that are important and certain beliefs that I have. One of them is adversity doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. But you have to look for the message, right? Because they say with every adversity there's a seed of a benefit if and only if you look for it. So you have to seek what the adversity is trying to teach you and what the lesson is. I also believe that nothing happens by accident. And the other day, my wife and I, we went over to lunch at the Center Club, and we were supposed to have a meeting with a friend of ours, but when we got there, we found out that the Center Club was actually still closed for the holidays. And luckily, the management there was super friendly, very nice, and they said, hey, we're already doing an event. Why don't you guys go ahead and sit down? You guys can use the building, hang out if you like. And so that's what we did, is we sat down, and my wife and I were talking before our appointment showed up. But out of the blue, Jeremy shows up, and we had never met before, right, Jeremy?
Right, never, yeah.
Never? So you showed up, and you were kind of looking around like, what's
Yeah,
going on?
I didn't
Why
realize
is there nobody
the same
here?
thing. I thought they were open.
Yeah, so I said, yeah, they're closed. And so we talked a little bit, and then my wife invited you to come over and sit with us, and you did. And it was like the most amazing experience. And I think, the odds of us actually meeting were very slim, but we did meet.
Yeah.
And so we got to talk, and I felt like an instant connection, like the topics we were talking about and the discussion. And I found that we had a lot of commonalities, a lot of the same things we were passionate about, and vision. But I want you to kind of explain your backstory a little bit and who you are and what you were telling me that day, because it fascinated me. Because the first thing you told me is right now you're in real estate, right?
Yeah.
And I said, I definitely need to talk to you because I have a lot of real estate questions. And that's kind of like what sparked our conversation. So what is it you do in real estate right now?
I've been in real estate for a little over 5 years and just have a small startup development firm. And so we do acquisitions and development, build new houses, as well as have some commercial projects as well, and some repositions and reprises of old commercial assets, rebranding them into new concepts, and just we have a lot of fun. So,
and real estate's always kind of fascinated me, and I always wanted to learn more about real estate. But it's actually your background that really got my interest piqued. Because we were sitting there talking, and then what did you tell me you used to do before real estate?
So before real estate, I toured full time as a up and coming national artist. So on average between 120 to 150 shows a year nationwide. Did that for 8 years and did 8 projects, and had a lot of great success and fun as an artist and as a writer and creator. So
that's something I've always lacked my whole life, is any type of musical talent or musical skill. Matter of fact, a lot of people pay me not to sing.
I would.
But I've listened to your songs, and you're amazing, and your music is incredible. But is it all right? Can you mention like some of the groups you've toured with and worked with? And
well, sure. I'm really proud of a lot of friends that have done really well. We worked a lot through like the Midwest and the West Coast. I'm a Christian artist. I did tours with a good friend named Sean McDonald. He was a pretty popular guy, well-known guy in the mid-2000s. Done festivals and tours with like We Are Messengers are good friends of mine. They're like one of the new hot guys on the scene.
Music.
So we played a show together, and then their old bass player actually drove our rig for us right before they played Winter Jam. It was kind of this funny thing. And that's just how the music industry is. It's this big giant circle, and just did a lot of great. There's a lot of great people, and specifically the Christian music industry, and just had a lot of fun. Mike Weave and the guys from Big Daddy Weave, just all those guys are I look up to a lot of them and value them as and friends. We'd spent time together, and the list just goes on. There's a lot of great creators out there in the Christian music world.
So you talk about creators, and how many albums have you done?
I did 8 projects in my career.
8 projects.
Yeah.
So that's a lot. And like, where's your inspiration come from?
So for me, I've probably written 200-300 songs in my lifetime, and my inspiration really comes from just the core of who I am. It's all really about identity and focusing on why and who and how I'm becoming in my daily life. And really, my faith plays a large play in it. So whatever I'm passionate about at the moment, I write about. So I've written, when I proposed to my wife, I wrote a new song that day for her, and my wedding gift to her was an entire EP of love songs.
Oh, wow.
And so she's a champ, and just I said I kind of one-upped every guy I know because I wrote an entire record for you because I love you, and that was like, and so anything I'm passionate about that I'm just is just really focusing on my kids. It's like anything when you derive inspiration through your surrounding. And so, but ultimately, like, I'm constantly trying to be surrounded by the ultimate creator, by God himself, and try to put him in the forefront of my existence, of why I breathe and why I live, right? Is to try to empower people to know that they're valuable and that he thinks they're valuable.
So the one thing I really want to talk to you about is I love your vision. I love where you're going right now in your life. I love, and I'm going to have you talk about Crest.
Sure, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
But like where you are right now and being associated with all those people that you've been in the industry with and stuff, how much has that and mentorship like helped you get to where you are right now?
Well, life is just a bunch of building blocks, right? It's a road that you're driving down, and you build the vehicle as you're going. Right, so as you're driving, you're putting in these, you're putting the panels together and the engine together, and you're really starting to just learn the principles. And I remember being a young artist in the music industry. Before that, I lived in Mozambique, Africa, for a short stint with 300 orphans. It was the second poorest nation on the planet at the time, and just learned a lot about just selfless love and generosity, even from the poorest people on the planet. And I just remember, I'm 33, I'll be 34 this year, and just remember sitting there and just being empowered and just mesmerized by those people. And so that really set me up. That was like one of the first foundational movements in my life at 18, was living in Africa. And then at 20, when I felt this passion and calling into to write and sing my own original music, it was a step, right? That first year I did it, I think I grossed $2,000 the whole year.
Yeah.
And it was just like it just started building blocks and learning these principles of success. And man, I would say that was my foundation. It was just if you can make it in the music industry, especially like as things were pivoting and the technology was changing, and YouTube was coming on the scene, all this stuff was happening, and the industry was like, the method was changing. So, but I apply all those things I learned as a young entrepreneur, as an artist, waking up every day, going to a local coffee shop just to work on my laptop all day, just free water and like free refills all day, making calls, and just learning that tenacity, that grit of diligence, of being hyper focused on a target that I'm going for. And that's the difference between being diligent and hustling. Hustling guys are just constantly just trying to grab anything that moves.
Yeah.
Diligence is hyper focusing on, I'm going to say no to the majority of everything that I'm doing, that's offered to me, so I can stay focused on the thing that I really think is going to turn into what is valuable to me.
So let me ask you this, because this is like super important. You said a minute ago, like that first year you grossed like $2,000.
Yeah, $2,000 the whole year.
And now you're talking about like diligence. Like, what is it like about like certain entrepreneurs, certain athletes, certain people that are hyper focused and diligent, like you said, that allows you to stay focused on what you're trying to achieve, even through all the struggles and the adversity and the difficulties, when most people are telling you you should give up?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is passion. You have to have a passion towards it, and the passion needs to be bigger than success, than status, than money. The passion has to just come from the core of who you are, right? And you have to understand your why. Like you're like, why am I doing this? And that's your foundation, is your why. Then everything else is just, it's like building blocks on top of it. Then you have to figure out your systems. You have to figure out your processes. You have to figure out what makes you tick and how your brain's wired and unique. And again, that was just out of nowhere. I just organically started doing that, and it was like, and it was not quick. You know, it was like $2,000, and the next year was $4,000, and the next year was $8,000, and it was like all original music. No one wants to hear your original music ever, right? When you're first starting. Yeah. And for me, is I never actually played locally. I played a little bit when I first started, but I learned that I grew in circles. I would try to just grow a little bit more, because as I got farther away from my hometown, I was more accepted to play my original songs. And so I had to really, really, really risk it and hit the Southeast within like the first year and a half, because once I got out of my state, then the perception was that I was somehow more successful than the local guy. And it wasn't true, but it was like, then I was able to break into play my own original content. And that's all I knew. So that was kind of, and then it just grew into a national, and did some international stuff too from that.
This is the coolest part for me. Like, you know, I think the reason you and I hit it off so much is when we were sitting there having that conversation that day, I sensed the passion from you and everything you're doing and how much you love it and why you're doing things. The one thing that you said that really resonated with me, because I'm thinking about the same thing right now, is here you are in your music career. You know, you're talking about building your circles and everything right now and growing it. And right as you're getting ready to explode in the music industry.
Potentially, yeah.
You know, like all these amazing things are starting to happen to you. You're getting recognition. You know, people are knowing who you are. I mean, your band was named after you, right? Yeah.
I was an independent artist. So all my buddies, you know, a lot of them were again, they've done really well. And they signed with big companies. And so they had a lot of extra resources that I didn't have. I had to get scrappy and try to make a similar impact with probably about 5% of the budget, you know, and just, so continue questions.
So the thing is, you're getting ready to explode, all these amazing things. I listen to your music, and it's amazing, right? Just as you guys are getting ready to like really, really grow, you had a shift.
I did, yeah.
And what was the word you said to me?
I don't remember.
The key word you said was obedience.
Obedience, yes.
Right?
Yeah, obedience.
So as you were getting ready to explode, what is it you were hearing? Like, what was the message you were getting?
So I remember very distinctly, I just finished doing a summer tour, and we just finished doing a long national stint off my last project called No Death. It was the No Death tour, and that single just started really turning, and I started getting videos of people, like 3,000 people singing it here as people were covering it in a church, and just started getting calls for bookings. And I never had that before in my life, you know. So I had this song that was starting to, and I had like 2 or 3 songs on that project that were just really good, and we were teed up for the next 1 or 2 projects to just. And I remember being in Minnesota, helping my friends start this conference, and I was just like a keynote leader there, worship leader, and I remember being in Minnesota. And a week before that, 2 weeks before that, I was on tour with Sean McDonald, and he's 10 years senior to me. And I was like, man, I'm just feeling, I'm sensing something weird in me. Like everything is making sense. I've worked so hard, sustaining everything we're doing. My wife's coming with me, my daughter's coming with me. Like we're doing it the right way, we're healthy. And people are calling now. It's like the conversations like behind the door, you know, that happens where like the next impact is a year later, 2 years later. Those are all starting to happen. And I just remember talking to my friend Sean saying, dude, I am just feeling, I don't know, I just feel like I'm not, there's a shift happening in me. He's like, that's normal, you're about to break in, you're there. Like, and so I remember sitting in Minnesota, flying up there, and just praying, just like, it doesn't make any sense why I'm feeling this way, and just sensing, and again, this position of surrender, saying, God, whatever you want from my life, you never let me down, you lead me wherever you want. I'm going to pause, I'm going to pray and press into this. And I heard just clear as day in my heart that I want you to stop, and I want you to go home and get into real estate. Can't explain it, but it was just as clear as day. And I called my wife.
And real estate's like a weird jump from music.
It was a crazy weird jump, yeah. And I was like, why would I do that? That doesn't make any sense. We had just bought our first house, and it was like, it was fun, you know, but it wasn't like, I hadn't done it. But it was just that. So it was just this strange, like out of blue, I want you to get into real estate. It was like, all right. And so, and real estate wasn't what it is today. It was not anywhere close to what it is today, you know. And so you're like, all right, God, if that's what you want me to do. And so I called another buddy of mine, and we prayed together, and then it was like, I was done. I just laid it down. And again, the next week, I got the phone call. I got nominated for an award. That was like the next big artist award, like the next big unknown artist award or something like that. And it was just, and I still went and did that award show, and it was a lot of fun. But yeah, it was like complete pivot. Like everything, we had everything. And I was just with my old drummer, and he did some booking for me back in November in South Dakota. And he was like, we were all really pissed at you. We just...
So I imagine a lot of people were upset with you.
Everyone thought I was crazy. Yeah, they were like, we thought you were nuts. Like you were just doing it. Like you're successful.
But that's the thing with obedience, right? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But in order for us to be obedient, we just have to do what we're told to do.
The lowest risk ratio is obedience.
Yeah,
right?
and what did your wife say?
So my wife's unbelievable. She's just, I wouldn't be who I am today without her. She's awesome, and so she's always just followed my lead and trusted that I was following Jesus, right? And ultimately we prayed together, and she felt peace. And I mean, you don't do what we did even in the music industry without some craziness of like, I think we're going to do this, so let's just step out and do this. So the first thing I did was I took all my principles, and I went home, and I started reading 2 books a week on real estate. And I had a mentor at the time. I still have him. I just met with him this morning. God had teed it up for the last 3 years. I had a guy who was one of the top developers in Tampa, had been mentoring me at my church, just as a man-on-man, just leadership, father figure. And they did thousands of houses out in Brandon and different parts of high rises and things like that around town. And so like it was already teed up for me to learn real estate.
Isn't it kind of weird, because as we go through this journey, like we don't see all this stuff that's happening in our life, but then all of a sudden, like, here you are, you're being obedient, you're listening, and now everything is really making sense.
Well, hindsight's always 20/20, right? It's always easy. Oh, I would have, you're always like, why didn't this guy do that? Be like, well, you weren't in the game at the time. You didn't feel the pressure. You didn't feel, he didn't know what was coming up next, right? When you look at sports analogies and those type of things. So yeah, obedience, when you're in a position of trying to control everything and fear-based, obedience is very scary. But when you're in a position of faith-based and realizing I lack control of anything, it's a smokescreen, right? It's relative. I can't really control it. Then it's true freedom. Then you're just walking and you're enjoying life and you're living life. But it's all about your priorities, understanding that the greatest currency in the world is relationships and the greatest resource is time. And if you can start cognitively making your decisions about relationships and time, and you stop chasing really the cares of the world and the deceitfulness of its riches and desires of other things, then you start to walk and flourish, and you realize that life is bigger than the next big deal. And a good friend of mine calls it chasing the horizon, right?
Okay, so what's chasing the horizon?
So chasing the horizon is basically, I'm super goal oriented. So I want to hit this target. I want to grab this thing. I'm going to eat it alive. I'm going to kill it. I'm just going to crush it. And so I hit that target. Say it's a new house. You want your dream house, right? This is a perfect example of chasing the horizon. So you get your beautiful dream house, and you move into it, and you just caught the horizon. Within a week, you're going to see your neighbor's house, and you're going to chase that horizon. So you'll never actually catch the horizon. The closer you get to it, the farther it's going. And so we have this thing within our circle that's been quoted several times, that we celebrate progress, not perfection.
That's awesome, because I can relate to that in my industry, in financial services.
Yeah.
Because when I sit down with families and I try to help them, we always talk about goals, right? And we're like, I'm trying to help them get there. And the difficulty in financial services is what I do isn't tangible, right? So I have to create a vision for people, and I have to share with them, like, okay, when do you want to retire? What's the lifestyle you want in retirement? And I'm like, I have to have them imagine, like, what's the most important thing? They say travel, right? Travel's kind of generic. So I have to have them focus in, where do you want to travel to? Now they have a destination. And then I'm like, okay, what is it about that destination? And now they're visualizing the whole thing. They know what they're working towards. So I love that, chasing the horizon. And it's like,
you never catch it.
You never catch it. So that's what I'm going to do with everybody in financial services. I'm going to teach them this closer
and
closer
celebrate progress, not perfection. You'll never catch the horizon. The horizon is perfection, right? And you have to cast it, you have to cast your dreams, and then you have to get super targeted, focused. So every year I do a 10-year dream line, a 5-year dream line, 2 one-year goals, 6-month vision, and then quarterly rocks, action items, down to monthly actions, weekly, and then 3 items daily. And I'm reviewing these monthly. But I've realized I have a 40% return on my investment year over year. So subsequently, what I would achieve my dreams, which are the impossible, I've achieved them now by year 6. So I just surpassed my dreams that I dreamed 6 years ago. With my 10-year, I would never reach. I surpassed them, I think, last year.
So what you're saying right now, these are like golden nuggets.
Yeah.
And I love it. And so that leads me into Crest.
Yeah, Crest.
And
yeah.
this is what got me really fired up in our conversation and what you're doing, because you started to share a vision with me as soon as we met. And we actually went out to your building. So we're talking about your journey in music and everything you learned in music, right? And then you transitioned into real estate and just being obedient and going where the Lord wants you to go.
Yeah.
So you learned everything about real estate.
No, not everything.
Well, you learned a lot about real estate, right? And now it's like some opportunities came up for you.
Yeah.
And you just stepped out on a limb because you didn't even know how you were going to make this stuff happen. But I want you to talk about like what you just did recently with the building and Crest and everything that's going on and what that stands for.
So coming up on a year ago, it'll be a year in February, I got a phone call from a man who's now become a friend. He's a pastor, he's a friend. And the pandemic really, really hurt a lot of organizations, a lot of churches, a lot of faith-based organizations. Most lost 2/3 of their congregation. Yeah. And if you were, it's simple mathematics and an algorithm. If you were at a certain point of population, you survived. If you weren't, it pretty much made the inevitable faster, right? And so there's been 7 churches that have sold within a mile radius of my house, and 6 have been torn down and repurposed into other great things. Some are ambulatory ERs, some are gas stations, some are, townhome developments and houses, whatever it might be. And so my passion is I think culture and community needs to be preserved, right? That's my big thing. My church I go to is a very diverse community. How you were brought up impacts how you see life, and we can all learn from each other. And diversity through unity is where we need to be. And so for me, I was like, well, all right, I'm always available to try to help another leader because my passion is leading leaders. And so this guy called me on a recommendation from another friend, said, hey, I know a developer is one of the most creative guys that I know that does this. And he was getting hunted by like 3 or 4 other developers. And so he called me and we met up at a local coffee shop. And the first thing I did was, all right, let's show me, how bad is this, right? You're bleeding out. Can we fix this? Can we stitch this up? Or are you really dead? Or is this? And sure enough, man, we looked at it, it was like, man, you're done. They're toast. And there were all these other minority churches there, which I thought was really unique. And so I thought, man, if I let this go and tear this down and build houses, which is what the only thing made sense, was like 6 houses. I said, if I tear this down, I have an Ethiopian church that's going to die. I have a Haitian church that's going to die. I have a Latino congregation, which is a Cuban-based congregation that's going to die. I have all this stuff. And so I said, all right. So I prayed about it, and I'd been cultured. I'd traveled around, so I kind of knew what was happening with different places and what the pandemic was going to push forward within the market, and just how we work, right, is changing. Everyone loves to office from home, but they hate to work from home. But everyone's missed authentic community as well. So my thought was like, hey, let me turn this into an incubator. So it's a church. It's still a church, right? I have 4 churches that currently meet there, but it's an incubator for small, young churches and leaders. And so I remember, like, I said, here's the deal. I'll put it under contract. I got a unanimous vote there was like 5 other people vying for this property. And I thought, I can't guarantee this. There's a lot of gray areas here. But I figured out, read through the law, the land use, met with my land use attorney, and said, this works. This is the only thing that can happen within what the city wants, even, yada yada yada, other than houses. And I said, there's got to be a bigger impact. It's right here in the heart of Tampa. And so that's where it was birthed. I was on the phone with my buddy John, who is just this amazing guy, and he's got quite the heritage. And his I won't say his full name because he doesn't like it. It's embarrassing for him. But his grandfather, ex-removed, signed the Declaration of Independence, and some of his grandfathers were the presidents of the United States and those type of things. And so I called my friend John. Hey, John, I got this deal. I got it under contract. This is what I'm thinking. And he goes, that sounds like the Cresseret. I go, all right, bro, only you're going to know. I have some Latin word that I've never heard of. What is the crescere? And he goes, it's the Latin word that means to rise, increase, and to grow. And so the passion for me was, how do I redevelop and repurpose this asset in its legacy into what it really is supposed to be, and that's building up people in their identity and focus. So that's where the crescere was built. And I was like, that's not marketable though, man. You can't market the crescere. When you spell it, you can't even pronounce it, you know? And so I shortened it to CRES, C-R-E-S. And that was just like the infant stages of it. And I said, all right, grow, increase, and rise up. All right. And so then it's just kind of morphed as I bring in community and bring in peers. Like, hey, what do you think of this? And I've just kind of mulled over that vision. And the facility ended up being amazing. It needed a facelift, so we're almost done. We just finished phase 1, and we're in the soft launch phases. But it's really grown into this thing like, all right, so why would someone join? It's to increase, rise, and to grow, but not just in your economic sense, but in your entirety of life. Are you present as a husband? Are you present as a father? Are you working out? Are you eating right? Are you held accountable in your life? The entire, just our culture, right, as being pursuers of God. And again, I've always honestly really been frustrated with the hustle culture. I've always hated the hustle culture, if you know what I mean by that.
Yeah.
You go, why are you guys hustling so hard? Like, you shouldn't glorify 20-hour work days.
Why are you frustrated by the hustle culture?
Well, because you're throwing a grenade at something and you're chasing money. You're just chasing a deal, and you're glorifying a burnout lifestyle that's going to create destruction for multiple generations, because every decision you're making today impacts people for the next 200 years. And so if you're just getting the highlight reels of this. You're not seeing the depression, the anxiety, the overworked. I mean, you're going to have, if we don't correct this through healthy, diligent culture, if we don't promote the diligent culture, you're going to have so much, the heart disease is going to be up, suicides are going to go up as that generation gets older. And it's like, it's our generation, or my generation, right? It's the 30s and the 20s. And it's
all that stuff's already going up.
It's impacting, right? And then you throw the pandemic on top, you go, diligence, the difference between hustling and being diligent. Hustling is chasing anything that moves that you think can pay for some type of lifestyle, your why of status, its impact. But diligence goes, my why, for me, my personal why, is to empower everyone I touch in my sphere of influence, from random meetings at the Center Club to the coffee shop to anyone. And I've always been this way as an artist. I remember playing a festival with like 50,000 people, and then like hanging out with the barista, you know, and our homeless guy or whatever, and just like trying to continually maintain the reality of my situation, that I'm not better than this guy just because I had all these people singing with me, that we're human beings and we're both made in the image of God. And so taking that whole why of like, you're valuable, you have a purpose, and I want you to know your identity. And it's always stems from that. Everything I do stems from people knowing their value, their vocation, their purpose. And so being diligent is hyper-focusing in on your 5%, why you exist, and then finding what you do for money to benefit that, right? So a lot of times we'll make our decisions based off of our lifestyle of capital and money, and they're giving that stuff away right now. It's pretty much, you know, you just, right? So
what's your hyper-focus right now?
My hyper-focus is what it's always been, and that's empowering, inspiring people to be the best that were created to be. I'm in the people business. If I can develop people through principles, and then because principles, I learned this again from my friend, principles are few and never change, but methods are many and change frequently, right? So you find the method. And so I've always stated that same principle. How can I value another human being? And it's always benefited me economically and socially, because it's just, I want to serve you. I want to be in a position of service.
And this is what you're trying to achieve with CRES.
Yeah, so CRES is me merging all of it together. Me merging my background in the arts and entertainment, the events planning, all that stuff, to plan 150 shows and tours and do all that. So there's a lot of infrastructure that goes into that. Oh, yeah. This isn't my first time in front of cameras. Like, you get used to all of it. So taking that world that I lived for 10 years, mixing the world before that, which was, you know, poverty, missions, pouring into people, learning culture, and then jumping into real estate and becoming an economic leader in a sense, taking all of it together with the passion, mixing it together of empowering people and leading leaders. That's what I want to do with CRES. I basically want to take what's made me successful as a human being and try to get it to where we can create a roadmap for it and empower other people to take these principles and some of the methods that work for me and just get them. It's a great connector. It's all it is. It's an axle to connect wheels. It's growing much bigger. I think we're going to start it. It's really a media network and content creation concept. So we're going to have content creators like what you're doing here, and just a hub for people to collaborate, to network. And so it's what it's for. You want to increase, rise, and grow. Who it's for is leaders, entrepreneurs, and creatives, right? The 10% of society that are moving culture forward. And then what it stands for is building community and relationships with energy through synergy. So go ahead.
No, I say that's powerful. And like right now you're starting locally, right?
Yeah.
So you're talking about making an impact on your local community. What's your long-term vision with Crest, and like where do you want to go?
So like the 20-year play, a 30-year play, a 50,000-foot view, for me, you have a glass ceiling, and my glass ceiling has gone pretty high with the exposure I've had through traveling and life and just the men that have been impacting my life. So we want to impact the world. We want to impact the nation. I see we need a grassroots movement within society. We need to use the Internet of Things. We need to utilize social media and subsequently social capital in that position of influence. So having the media concept where this content creation is constantly moving out and pushing out, but not just it being like a one-man show or a brand, it's like grabbing what you guys are doing here and taking it and partnering it right within the Crest culture and Crest community, taking it nationwide. So right now it's a church. We have 4 churches there. We operate as a community, but it's also a place where people can get involved on a deeper level, on a daily level, where there's membership tiers similar to like a club or a recreation space. And so what we've developed there is lounges, there's an event hall, an event space, which I know you're going to be taking advantage of at the end of this month. We have a private, again, it's all private based off of what we can operate within this space, members only, cafe and coffee shops. You have to be a member to partake in it. We're working on the outdoor space as we speak. And then there's 4 conference rooms for breakout rooms and to build community, as well as some private member areas. And there's 3 tiers to it. So the entry-level tier, this is the brick and mortar, is going to just be the $50 membership that gets you access to this private cafe and outdoor space. And it gets you unlimited drip coffee, water, and Wi-Fi. And then the next tier is $200, and that'll get you pretty much access to the entire space and the ability to reserve 6 hours a month of private meeting rooms. And so it's merging a lot of what's hitting right now, this co-work culture, the club culture, the coffee culture, and taking it, putting it all under one roof, but with the position of how do we hit your mental, your spiritual, and your physical. How do we hold you accountable? And then the third tier is the upper room, which is it's invite only, background checked, interviewed. Those are the guys they're going to be like the content creators, those type of things.
And I think you and I both know, like, your world will shift and change as you get those associations and you meet the right people that influence you and teach you things that you don't usually have access to.
Yeah.
That mentorship is huge.
It's huge. It's huge. It's literally what breaks the glass ceiling. So like a big part of us was I'm the first generation to bridge financial poverty in my family's life. And we did that 3 years ago. It was all through strategy, through counseling, and through just investing so much back into my career as an artist. But, health insurance went crazy in 2012, 2013. And
I love how you said you're the first one to break that, financial barrier for you and your family. Because there's a quote that I love, and it says, if you don't come from a wealthy family needs to come from you. And as we kind of wrap this up, because this is huge, I love this stuff, and you always get me so fired up and excited about the vision. With Crest and your goal, like you're starting locally, you're growing globally, and as you build this up, what's one of those key principles that you talk about that you want everybody to kind of take away and apply to their life?
So one of the key principles that I always try to impact with people is sums of the questions: what is your vocation? What is your why? Right, what's your 5%? And I refer to that because it's the 80-20 principle that I see throughout the universe. There's this calculation and algorithm, the 80-20 of finance, the 80-20 of leadership. Do 10% and the other 80% is done 80% the way I would do it, and then come back in and do 10% as John Maxwell. And so you get all these things. That means and I learned this from one of my key mentors, but there's this position of there's got to be an 80-20 of every individual. And it goes a little something like this. 80% of everything you do, somebody else should do and can do. Let them do it. 15% of everything you do, somebody else can do with proper training and proper pay. But 5% of everything you do, no one will ever be able to do from the moment you're born to the moment you die. That is the unique imprint that you can leave on history, right? And that's it. And the history is those that are your influence. And so find your vocation, find your why, find what makes you tick, and then let's have a conversation how we can empower you to network you and connect you with the right people to empower you to take that 95% off of you to push you into that 5% daily.
That's awesome. So, what I'm going to do, Jeremy, and my guest today is Jeremy Vanderloop with Crest. He's doing amazing things to impact the community. We're going to put your website up for
not
people
up
to
yet,
get. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So as soon as it's up,
It'll
we'll have
launch
it
like
posted.
March 1st. Yeah, so
March
this
1st.
is literally like a soft launch. This is
Okay.
just getting the buzz going, and yeah. So we're working on the website right now.
So we'll have it up as soon as it's ready,
yeah.
and we're going to do a lot of amazing things to impact our community.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you for coming on today
you
and
for having
talking. This 80-20 rule is amazing. If you guys take away just one golden nugget, that 80-20 is powerful.
They can find me on my website as well.
Okay, so
it's jeremyvanderloop.com.
Okay.
And so they can fill out a contact form or follow me on social media, and would love to connect with anybody.
And we'll put your links right up on the podcast for everybody. So thank you, and remember, David Henning mindset, where good money decisions just make sense. Thank you.